Your dog is watching you sleep, not every night, but enough that you've noticed. You wake at 2 a.m. to find them sitting beside the bed, perfectly still, eyes locked on your face. Most people find this endearing. Some find it unsettling. Both reactions assume the same thing, that your dog is either guarding you or waiting for something. What's actually happening has nothing to do with protection or anticipation. It's a communication system you've been missing, and it shows up in 10 specific behaviors that scientists have only recently decoded. These aren't the obvious signs. These are the ones hiding in plain sight. Number 1. The 3-second eyebrow flash. Your dog lifts their eyebrows when you walk into a room. It's quick, barely a flicker, and it happens in the first 3 seconds of seeing you. In 2019, researchers at the University of Portsmouth studied facial movements in 24 shelter dogs and found something unexpected. When dogs saw their owners after a separation, even a brief one, they raised their inner eyebrows significantly more than when seeing strangers. This wasn't random muscle movement. It was deliberate communication. The study, published in Scientific Reports, used dog fax coding to track micro-expressions. What they discovered is that this eyebrow raise makes a dog's eyes appear larger and more infant-like, triggering nurturing responses in humans. But here's the deeper layer. Dogs don't do this with other dogs. They developed this expression specifically for humans, likely through thousands of years of domestication, selecting for dogs who could manipulate human emotional responses. Your dog isn't just happy to see you. They're actively trying to make themselves more lovable to you in that moment. And the fact that this behavior evolved means it worked. The relationship shaped their face. Number 2. The lean that isn't about balance. Your dog presses their full weight against your leg while you're standing. Not sitting, not lying down, just leaning hard enough that if you moved, they'd stumble. Most people interpret this as clinginess or anxiety. A 2021 study by researchers at Azabu University in Japan measured oxytocin levels in dogs during different types of physical contact. They tested 30 dogs and found that sustained pressure contact, what they called deep leaning, elevated oxytocin in both the dog and the human being leaned on. The effect lasted up to 45 minutes after the contact ended. But there's a second factor. Dr. Takefumi Kikusui, who led the research, discovered that dogs who engaged in this behavior showed decreased cortisol when their owners were present, but elevated cortisol when their owners left. The lean isn't about physical support. It's a regulatory behavior. Your dog is using your body to regulate their own stress hormones, and in doing so, they're regulating yours. The pressure creates a feedback loop. They calm down because you're there. You calm down because of the oxytocin release their pressure triggers. This is mutual emotional regulation happening through weight distribution. Number 3. Sleeping with their back to you. Your dog sleeps with their spine pressed against you, but their face pointed away. This feels like rejection to most people. They assume the dog is guarding the room or doesn't want full contact. In 2018, researchers at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest used thermal imaging to study sleeping positions in 42 dogs over 6 months. What they found contradicts the protective interpretation entirely. Dogs who slept with their backs to their owners showed lower heart rates and entered REM sleep 23% faster than dogs who slept facing their owners or across the room. The back-to position correlated with higher trust scores in behavioral assessments. From the dog's perspective, this position makes tactical sense in a way that has nothing to do with guarding. Facing away means they trust you to monitor the direction they can't see. They're not protecting you. They're trusting you to protect them while they sleep deeply enough to dream. The behavior indicates security, not distance. A dog who feels safe enough to be vulnerable in your presence will turn their back. Number 4. Bringing you dead things. Your dog brings you a dead bird, a dried-up frog, something previously alive that they found in the yard. They drop it at your feet and stare at you with what looks like pride. The common interpretation splits 2 ways. Either they think you're a bad hunter who needs help, or they're presenting a gift. A 2020 study published in Animal Cognition tested 83 dogs on object-sharing behavior. Researchers at the University of Vienna found that dogs preferentially brought novel objects, especially biological materials, to owners who had recently spent time away from home. The average time threshold was 4 hours. Dogs who had been separated from owners for 4 hours or more were 67% more likely to present found objects within the first 15 minutes of reunion. This isn't about feeding you or showing off. It's reintegration behavior. Your dog is trying to share their experience with you. specifically the experiences they had while you were gone. The dead bird represents something that happened in your absence. By bringing it to you, they're attempting to close the experiential gap. They're saying, "This is what my world was like without you, and now I'm including you in it retroactively." The behavior is about narrative sharing, not hunting assistance. Number 5. The sigh during contact. Your dog is lying next to you. You start petting them, and within 30 seconds, they let out a long, deep sigh. Most people read this as contentment, a sort of settling in. That's partially true, but incompletely understood. In 2017, researchers at the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna studied respiratory patterns in 56 dogs during different types of human contact. They found that sighing behavior occurred most frequently during slow, rhythmic petting, but only when the dog initiated the contact first. If humans initiated the petting, the sigh rate dropped by 41%. The sigh isn't just relaxation. It's a parasympathetic shift. Dr. Ludwig Huber, who led the study, explained that the sigh represents the moment when the dog's nervous system switches from alert to rest and digest mode. But here's what makes it a love signal. This shift only happens when the dog feels safe enough to lower their vigilance. The sigh is the audible sound of your dog deciding they don't need to monitor their environment anymore because you're handling it. They're exhaling their guard. In that breath, they're telling you they trust you enough to stop protecting themselves. Number 6. Choosing your worn clothing. Your dog takes your worn shirt from the laundry basket and sleeps on it when you're not home. This seems obvious. They miss your scent. But a 2019 study at the University of Bristol examined this behavior with more precision. Researchers tested 75 dogs to see which items they chose when left alone. The dogs had access to their owner's worn clothes, clean clothes, another person's worn clothes, and their own bedding. 88% chose the owner's worn clothes, but specifically items worn within the last 24 hours. Items worn 2 days prior showed a 52% selection rate. The freshness of scent mattered more than the type of item. Then researchers added a second layer. They tested cortisol levels in dogs with access to owner-scented items versus dogs without. Dogs with access to recently worn items showed 29% lower cortisol levels over a 3-hour separation period. Your dog isn't just comforting themselves with your smell. They're using your scent as a pharmacological intervention against separation stress. The worn shirt functions as a chemical extension of your presence. When they curl up on it, they're not remembering you. They're simulating the stress-reducing effect your physical presence provides. The item is a stand-in, but it's a functional one. The love shows up in what they use your scent to regulate. Number 7. Slowing down to match your pace. Your dog walks beside you and adjusts their speed to yours. On days when you're tired, they walk slower without being told. On days when you're energized, they match that too. In 2016, researchers at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences studied walking synchronization in 52 dog owner pairs. They used motion capture technology to measure gait coordination. What they found was striking. Dogs synchronized their walking speed to their owners with 89% accuracy within the first minute of walking together, even when the owner's pace varied significantly from the dog's natural gait. But there's a deeper mechanism here. The same study measured the synchronization in dogs walking with strangers. The accuracy dropped to 34%. This wasn't about training or obedience. It was selective coordination. Dr. Josef Topal, who led the research, found that dogs made continuous micro-adjustments to maintain shoulder-to-shoulder positioning with their owners specifically, even when it meant walking at a pace that was biomechanically inefficient for them. A medium-sized dog's natural walking speed is roughly 1.5 times faster than an average human's. Matching your pace requires constant deceleration. Your dog is choosing to move inefficiently to stay connected to you spatially. They're prioritizing proximity over comfort. The love is in the adjustment they're making every single step. Number 8. The belly exposure that isn't submission. Your dog rolls onto their back and exposes their belly to you. The common explanation is that this is submission or a request for belly rubs. In 2015, researchers at Lund University in Sweden studied this behavior in 248 dogs across different contexts. They found that belly exposure happened in 2 distinct patterns with different meanings. When dogs exposed their bellies during play with other dogs, it was often a defensive move, a way to use their legs to push away an overly enthusiastic playmate. But when dogs exposed their bellies to their owners outside of active play, something different was happening. The study measured heart rate and found that belly-up dogs in the presence of calm owners showed decreased heart rate, and increased heart rate variability, both markers of parasympathetic activation. This wasn't submission. It was voluntary vulnerability. Dr. Mechthild Käufer explained that exposing the belly, the most vulnerable part of their body where vital organs sit close to the surface, requires trust at a neurological level. Dogs won't do this unless their amygdala has assessed the environment as safe. When your dog rolls over for you, they're not asking for anything. They're showing you that your presence has deactivated their threat response system. They trust you enough to expose the part of themselves they would protect from everyone else. Number 9. Following you room to room. Your dog gets up and follows you every time you leave the room, even if you're just going to the kitchen for 30 seconds. This looks like dependency or separation anxiety to most people. A 2018 study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science examined this following behavior in 134 dogs. Researchers at Lincoln University measured cortisol and used behavioral coding to distinguish between anxious following and affiliative following. They found that dogs who followed their owners room to room showed normal cortisol levels and normal heart rate if the owner remained visible. The stress response only activated when owners left the house entirely or closed doors between themselves and the dog. The following wasn't about anxiety. It was about preference. Dr. Daniel Mills, who led the research, described it as voluntary proximity maintenance. Your dog isn't following you because they're worried you'll disappear. They're following you because they prefer being in the same space as you to being alone, even temporarily. The distinction matters. A companion study found that dogs given the choice between staying in a comfortable room alone or following their owner to a less comfortable space chose to follow 78% of the time. They're choosing your presence over their own comfort. The love is in the choice they make every time you stand up. These behaviors aren't background noise. They're a communication system running parallel to the one you've been paying attention to. The eyebrow flash, the lean, the turned back, the dead bird, the sigh, the worn shirt, the matched pace, the exposed belly. The room to room, following each one, is your dog trying to tell you something specific. In 2021, researchers at Duke University synthesized findings from 14 years of canine cognition studies and concluded that dogs have developed a form of interspecies communication that's unparalleled in the animal kingdom. They've evolved to read human emotions, to synchronize with human rhythms, and to regulate human stress responses. What you're seeing when your dog does these 10 things isn't random affection, it's targeted connection. They're not just loving you, they're trying to co-regulate with you, to close the gap when you've been apart, to show you they trust you with their vulnerability, to stay in your orbit even when it costs them comfort. The next time your dog leans against you, or follows you to the bathroom, or brings you something dead from the yard, you're not looking at neediness or instinct. You're looking at a creature who has chosen to tie their nervous system to yours. That's what these behaviors mean. If you've been missing them, you haven't been missing love. You've been missing the specific language your dog speaks it in. Drop a comment and tell me which of these your dog does most. And if you want more research-backed insights into what your dog is actually telling you, subscribe because we're just getting started.